Our next session is China's Electric Vehicle Playbook Scale, Speed, and Global Reach, presented by Automobility Advisors and moderated by Alan Levinson.
All right. All right. Can you all hear me? I think we will get started. Welcome. Thank you all for coming. I'm Alan Levinson. I'm really excited about this panel today. We have got a really diverse and interesting group of panelists with very different backgrounds. We've got Mark Wakefield from Alex Partners, honestly, one of our industry's foremost experts. We've got Paul Halterman, president of Autodata's, who is literally tears down vehicles for a living and specializes in Chinese EVs. And then we've got Pepe Zhao, president of RoboSense LiDAR, literally a Chinese-owned company, and he's worked on both there and here. So really interesting perspectives. What we're going to do today is I'm going to present just a few, like in 2 minutes, charts to give you, just sort of set the stage for where we are today. Then we're going to let each panelist introduce themselves, any introductory remarks, and then we'll go right into a panel discussion and see how it goes, let it go freely, and then we will leave some room at the end for questions. So with that, let's see, does this work? Okay. Quickly, again, Alan Levinson, started my career in consulting, have been in all sides of the auto industry, first with Asbury, one of the public dealer groups, ran a vendor called Prospect Vision, and then General Motors. Now with Automobility Advisors, we are a boutique auto consultancy, help companies build their business in the automotive space, all industry veterans. Before I go through this, just want to tell sort of two sort of personal stories that I think are very relevant today. I used to come to this show many years ago when I was with Asbury. We were based in New York, and literally 20 years ago, probably today, in 2005, we came, and downstairs there was one vehicle from China, and it looked like the thing probably couldn't even move. I'll never forget, no idea what the brand was, but the seats looked like they were made of like a nest, like a bird's nest. And I remembered leaving, we'll never see Chinese cars in this country. And that was 20 years ago. The last part, I assume everyone knows this, but if you don't, just how we got to where we are today is a pretty interesting story. Starting around 2009, the Chinese government decided and made a very definite decision, strategic decision, that automotive was going to be an area of expertise. And they kind of said, they're never going to be able to win at internal combustion engines, so they put all of their focus on EVs, whether that's through subsidies, whether that's through building out infrastructure, all different areas. And the bottom line is, it worked. As you can see on this first chart on the left, this is in China. You can see the red. All the vehicles manufactured by Chinese companies has grown and will continue to grow throughout the rest of the decade. On the right, all variations of green are some form of electrification. And as you can see, again, EVs are just taking over in China. And if we showed you that same data in countries where Chinese cars are sold, Europe, South and Central America, you'd start to see those same trends. As you all probably know, EVs are computers on wheels, easy to add technology, and as you can see here, all of the ADAS and autonomous driving, the Chinese vehicles are much higher penetration, and you'll hear a little bit about that from Pepe. Anybody knows in our industry, the freshness of your vehicles is huge, and as you can see here in China, at the bottom, the EV-focused vehicles out of China, less than 2 years old. The legacy brands in China, closer to 4, and then the non-Chinese brands over 5. So just a huge implications there. And then last chart to set the stage. If you think of our industry, the 1970s, it was all about Japan, low cost, great manufacturing. The 90s, Korea came on, lower cost, and has just been enormously strong, continues to grow. The 10s, all about Tesla dominating. And where are we today? It's all about China. And anybody that was at CES last week, I think that was probably pretty evident. With that, let me turn it to our panel to introduce themselves and any introductory remarks. Mark?
Okay. Mark Wakefield. Nice to meet you guys. I have been in the industry for about 30 years. I started at Magna, then McKinsey, HSBC, and auto finance, and then in M&A. And I've been at Alex Partners for about 20 years. At Alex Partners, we do management consulting, interim management, other advisory type things. We work for very ambitious companies, so ones that are growing fast or ones that have their backs against the wall and have to move. And we're founded in the auto industry, grown up to be the largest practice of Alex Partners, helping automakers, suppliers, even some dealerships and aftermarket companies and F&I as well.
Paul?
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Halterman. Can you advance?
I think you need to.
Thank you.
Oh.
So much for that.
Oh, well, I think I have no idea how to go back.
There we go. There
we go. Thank you.
There we go. Oh.
Whoa.
All right, it wasn't me.
Anyways, I'm president of Auto Datas. We're a benchmarking company. I've been in the industry for 50 years. That slide doesn't like me, but that's okay. 10 years at Ford Motor Company, 18 years at Magna, 19 years at IHS Automotive, which is now S&P Global, and for the last couple of years, I've been at Auto Datas. So I started doing business in China in the 1980s. That's how far back I go. In my Magna days, by the way.
Yeah.
I did Magna's first joint venture in China.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. My name is Pei Zhao. I probably have the least experience in the automobile industry. I'm from RoboScience Ladder in charge of North America operation and business. And our company started doing business in America since 22, and we've been very lucky to launch the first American automobile-grade mass production LiDAR program with American OEMs. Talk about myself, I was born and raised in China, for sure, you guys can tell. For the last 2 decades, automobile experience, I spent half in US, half in China. A lot of things to tell for today, including my OEM experience, my tier experience, my technology company experience. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Pepe, did you want to say anything about?
Yes, this
one
chart
page?
is not like directly related to EV, but EV definitely driven a lot of sectors in automobile parts. For example, the key component LiDAR for ADAS and autonomy feature, we can easily tell there's a lot of difference between different regions, but there's no right or wrong. China definitely has a lot more players than other region. America have a little bit less than Europe players right now. I think it's a big reason is for each region's EV adoption for mobility, L2 feature application we talked about just now. So we can definitely go deeper in our discussion.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. If you could, whoever has the charts could move us back to the first one, that would be terrific. All right, let's start our discussion. I guess, these days, everybody's talking about, just how good these vehicles are coming out of China. Jim Farley obviously was pretty public about what he saw. Mark, why don't you take this first one? How big of a problem do you see this being for the legacy automakers throughout the world? Are we witnessing sort of a watershed moment again, or how would you put it?
Yeah, I think we've passed the watershed moment. And you saw it when the EVs in China were starting to be launched twice as fast, 30% cheaper than the EVs here. And it was very clear when Xiaomi went from 0 to very impressive within 2 years that we've already got catching up to do as a Western auto industry, and that things have to change. Tesla gave hints at that, but there was always this element of, well, is this going to collapse on itself? And then when you've got 100 plus automakers fighting it out in a dogfight in China that's growing massively. Now we're seeing EVs at 20 million EVs last year plus were sold. It's an inevitability, but it has to have economics towards it. And so these sort of first mover, let's go out fast with our old ways, those vehicles, really required a lot of government support. So now it has to be getting real about what's our platform for electric vehicles, but also for software-defined vehicles, for the autonomous vehicles and having true AI world models, anticipating the world around it and being able to truly actuate and drive the vehicle. These are the competing landscapes of the future. And so it's absolutely existential that the US and European and Japanese and Korean, although the Koreans are a little bit further ahead on the speed thing, get with the program and start reevaluating fundamentally what they do.
The anything from sort of a competitive and operating dynamics in the EV industry, do you see changes coming out of this?
I mean, we see attempts at it by some Western auto companies, but this idea that time is a variable or not a variable is a really bright line between a lot of Chinese and EV companies and Western companies. What I mean by that is, when are you going to launch? From the time in which you say go to the time in which you launch, those milestones being actually explicit and immutable in Chinese and EV companies versus, well, it's not quite there yet, so we're going to take extra time, or it's taking us a long time to clinic or otherwise look at it. And so we see that being a very big difference. But other operating model, the vertical integration has been talked about, the standardization, the use of simulation. There's about 10 or 20 different real elements that drive a difference that you're starting to see experimentation with the Western automakers with, but not fundamentally changing the structure of their company and the way they develop vehicles, which is that fundamental process within an automaker.
Great. You started to talk a little bit about cost structures and all that.
Yep.
Let's, Paul, why don't we turn this one to you? You've obviously seen the insides of these vehicles. You've torn down both domestic and other parts of the world, as well as Chinese vehicles. The sense we're getting is that these vehicles are not only low cost, but very high quality. Give us a sense of what you've seen and what jumps out at you.
Well, Mark touched on it a little bit. I was really pleasantly shocked when Xiaomi came out with the SU7 and had no problems with it. No serious big problems. The cars, the fit and finish is amazing. The quality is amazing. And you can get a loaded out SU7 for about $45,000. It's a great product. So they're not cheap cars. They do make some cheap cars. You can buy some $5,000, $6,000 EVs out there, okay? But more and more, that middle of the road volume car is really a high quality product. Then you can look at the other end of the market. Take a look at BYD's luxury division, Yangwang. They're selling $200,000 cars. They've got an ADAS system with 3 lidars in it. I mean, they're not messing around.
Yeah. Wow. Anything that, in terms of the way these vehicles have designed, that kind of stands out with sharing of parts and different things?
That's a really good point, Alan. One of the things that we see happening at the supplier level, a couple things, but one of them is the reuse of parts across, not just within a platform from our customer, but from customer to customer. So, we're seeing like people use seat back frames. A seat back frame is a seat back frame. A bucket seat is a bucket seat. You get the differentiation in trim and foam, okay? So those parts can be used over and over and over again for different manufacturers. So you see a bit of that. And then I think the other thing that's really amazing is how fast they work. They are really doing programs in 18 months. Not like the Japanese used to say, where they would say, okay, program's approved, so it'll be done in 24 months. We're talking about 18-month programs. It's crazy.
Wow. How do they pull off 18-month turnaround when much of the rest of the world is double that or more?
Well, if you take a look at the number of engineering resources that these companies have inside them, I haven't been able to personally validate this, but some CEOs of some Japanese car makers have said to me they believe the number is correct, that BYD has more engineers on their team than all of Japan Inc. does for bringing new cars to market and for product development. And you see them working, I mean, 24/6.
Yeah, I mean the 996 thing is for sure, but the other element of what you're saying in BYD can make 70 to 80% of the components in their vehicle. They don't always
Vertically
make them, but they
integrated.
can make that much. There's no one anywhere close to that. Tesla would be the nearest, and they're probably less than 50%.
Right.
Um, and then, of course, traditional automakers, Volkswagen would be the highest, but below that, that level of I know how to do it necessarily, I may not do it necessarily, but I know how to do it is huge. But also then the annual thing. You never have a program for more than a year. You always have to fight for it. You could be moved out. You could be dual sourced. You likely are dual sourced. The competitive juices going on in that
It's
engine
heavy.
drive a movement forward. It's like a shark that can't stand still. It dies if it stays still in the water. It has to move.
Right.
You'd be left behind.
And you're seeing others do interesting things. Like if you go back a year, all of the Geely brands had their own product planning people, their own separate activities. Okay, they've combined that now. Even the Volvo guys are part of that process now. So you're going to see a lot more platform sharing within all of those brands: Geely, Zeekr, Radar, Polestar, etc.
You mentioned to me, I think, when we were preparing for this as well, that from a engineering perspective, you mentioned a minute ago going 24 hours, that they actually have two teams that work, two 12-hour teams. I've certainly never seen that, certainly in this country.
I've seen that. Okay, I mean, the intensity and the speed is just, it's amazing.
The whole sharing of parts, as long as I've been in the industry, it's always been something that we've talked about, and everybody knows it's an issue. And for whatever reason, at least in my days at GM and elsewhere, every time there's a new vehicle, there's always a reason that you can't use the old one, and it seems like a lot of starting over, and that just takes time.
There's an upside for the supplier too, if you think about it. If they're the sole owner of the tools, it's kind of hard to move them, especially for a part like a seat, because it has to be validated for crash. You can't just it's not like a battery. You can't just swap out batteries.
Let's change the discussion a little bit. I mentioned earlier about the support of the Chinese government. Pepe, you've lived it. Give us a sense of what you've seen in sort of the past and how this support, whatever it looked like, came about. And would you say it's at that same level today? Would you say it feels different? I think real curious to get a sense of bringing that to life for us a little bit.
Okay. I don't think so. We can go back to the topic if we talk about BYD and the Chinese OEMs. So right now, the newest time is like for mid-cycle change, sharing different parts and platform. Only take about 12 months for mid-cycle change model. For new model, maybe 24 months, 28, something like that. It's much faster than we expected. And also Chinese OEM, they have their own strength. Like for example, BYD really have a vertical integration. They have a strong in-house strategy for globalization. And talk about the government, you talk about the subsidy. I would prefer to use a word maybe incentive for, because I don't represent the government, but as a consumer, final car user, I think we do have a lot of incentive to use battery cars. Let me show you for 10 years. And I got an Audi Q3 Sportsback conventional car. I got a lucky draw, and I was selected. I'm gonna pay $13,000 for the plate only, and you're gonna win the lucky draw first. But I got another Tesla Model 3 performance model made in Shanghai. I paid nothing. There's a big incentive. Anytime you're in Shanghai, if you fly Delta to Shanghai next day and you open your map, you easily see more chargers than coffee shop. Anywhere. Doesn't have to be Shanghai. Any place more than millions population, you'll be able to find that. For final consumer, it's really important. They can easily use it in cheaper and better convenience level. That's the most important. Also, for sure, a lot of details. So when you go to a mall shopping, you park near the handicap because you got battery car. and you park for free, for sure. And you live in some hotels, luxury hotel, you got fast charger, you can charge twice that day for free. There's a lot of incentive. I think China automobile industry only take 40 years, 30 years old. Detroit got more than 100 years, so it's easy for those final consumer to switch to a battery vehicle. the behavior is easy to be trained too. Yeah.
I mean, certainly, if you think about our industry, scale has always just been so important. If you can churn out 250,000 vehicles out of a factory versus 12,000, your cost structure is just enormously different. So it's always been about getting to scale. And so if support and incentives can help you get there, once you've gotten there, you don't need them as much. But to help get over that hump, getting to scale in our industry it's just so expensive to bring a vehicle to market. Let's see. A little different discussion. I mentioned at the beginning, beyond the electrified powertrain, there's a lot of other technologies that we're seeing related to EVs, whether it's vehicle connectivity. We do a lot with that at AMA. SDV, infotainment. Mark, what are you seeing in terms of the Chinese manufacturers with these technologies sort of compared to the rest of the world?
First, you have a bit of an advantage when you're going into it as a clean sheet, because an automaker that has a ton of different vehicles that are going through different life cycles, it's very difficult to manage. And so the reason you see a lot of the SDV things and a lot of the autonomous on electric vehicles is because they were brand new platforms that you could go into versus you're trying to retrofit a very old electrical and electronic architecture system. So it's not an immutable fact that it has to be on an electric vehicle. It's just that these are brand new platforms going in. The openness, though, to sharing code and other things, because of the speed of which things are innovating, and you're not so worried about protecting the supplier and will the OEM take advantage of it. Everything's moving a bit faster than it's relevant to worry too much about that, where you've just got to move on that innovative side. But also the willingness to do things that are cross-company is extremely different. If you look at what Huawei has been able to do in the Chinese industry, and you try to imagine that happening in Europe or North America, it's very, very difficult to imagine. There's been a lot of businesses that tried and failed to get that level of acceptance of a core electronic system. And so, again, it goes back to well, what's going to get me there the fastest at the right price? And it's really somewhat irrelevant what the strategic implications are, because it's move or die, which is very different and creates a difference across not just EVs, but into the SDV side, into the AV side. You've seen companies that went very aggressive into AVs, but then you've seen companies like AutoX, Baidu, others that had vehicles running around before even anyone was regulating anything. And it's created an environment, though, where you're testing and learning at a very high rate, and you're either winning or losing in the market. With regards to profitability, most of them are unprofitable. You have to get to this about 200-ish thousand units in an EV side, 400,000 units in a plug-in hybrid side before you have really a chance at profitability in the auto industry, unless it's like super luxury. And so they're all chasing that scale game as well, versus saying, I'm going to cut my costs to profitability or something like that.
And fighting each other in a price war this past year, too.
Not just the past year. If you look like 2023 to now, the Chinese price on average has come down about 15%, whereas the US price went up about 25% in that same sort of period. And so, guess what? These are economic decisions that a buyer gets to make beyond some of the incentives. It's now a cheaper thing to buy an NEV than it is to buy a traditional ICE, and it's the opposite here.
Right. And how many manufacturers are there supposed to be in China? And I know we're seeing a shakeout starting already. It's like hundreds, isn't it?
It's depending on how you count it, anywhere from about 140 to 200.
That used to be like more 500, but it disappeared and succeed IPO too at the same time happening.
Yeah, I'm considering manufacturers as manufacturers. A lot of brands that then sort of contract manufacture.
Right.
Yeah.
Continuing along on this sort of the technology side, Pepe, obviously your business is all about autonomy, ADAS. if you think about what's the next big thing that could have an enormous impact on our industry and enormous disruption, it's obviously autonomy. And a lot of discussion for years now, but it appears as though we're starting to see it really finally take place. Um, any thoughts on what you're seeing
Yeah.
between the Chinese and the non-Chinese companies?
Yeah, I think Chinese OEM groups are really strong on scale and speed. And scale and speed bring a better integration efficiency and then bring a better insight and innovation capability, keep going. So in this way, and also Chinese OEM like to work with each other to launch new technology to keep them improve fast. So in our industry, like ADAS autonomy, mobility sector. I think for L2 hands-free application, because of the EV adoption penetration rate, I just read 25 result for production, about 34 million for China, 45% is EV. With this take rate, easy to have a more scale capability on mobility or ADAS feature L2 hands-free. For this part, definitely China right now temporarily is leading on penetration rate for consumer cars. For L4 application, robotaxi, robotruck, robobus, it might be the same stage because a similar number of players, a similar stage, each company have pretty certain solutions, and everybody focus on both scalability and reliability right now. So that's my understanding.
What I think is interesting is a strategy. You take a look at some of the Western car makers, they were trying to get subscription services
Yes,
for their self-driving technology. And here you have BYD introduce their God's Eye system and put it as standard equipment on their vehicles. Now they have the three systems.
That's
The low-level system
middle,
that's just
yeah.
cameras for the
That's right.
entry-level cars, but the mid-level system that goes like into their mid-level cars, like a Denza,
Yes.
that has one LiDAR, and then Yangwang, there's three LiDARs,
So many, yes.
plus the camera array also.
Yeah, I think it's different strategy for Chinese OEM, with other OEMs, because where is the addressable market? Shall we target affordability of 50K, 85K from nice feature for SaaS in the future? Or shall we down the price with 25, 15K? Then we can do SaaS later because we already put those devices on everybody daily driving. So it's really different strategy driving those behaviors.
I love how disruptive it is.
This whole concept of what can companies charge for is something we've seen for many years. It starts out as a subscription service, and then at what point does it become just part of every vehicle? And obviously with connected vehicles today, we've seen that. Certainly I know here in the US, sort of all the major manufacturers have talked about having $30 billion by the end of the decade of incremental high margin revenues from subscription services, this being one of them. And unclear if we will ever see those kinds of numbers, and at what point, as you say, does it just become table stakes just to be in the game? Let's see. Let's talk a little bit about the future. Mark, I'd love your thoughts on, this country, where we are with EVs seemingly slowing, yet certainly the Chinese brands and others are continuing to grow and bring them to market. Where do you see the future of our industry? Do you think that the fact that we're perhaps not putting as much focus now could have an impact on us in a negative way? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think obviously we have a bit of a breather that prevents a sort of wall of cheaper cars coming in that displace. The likelihood of, you saw Geely's announcement a few days ago about wanting to come in to the US. They've made these statements before, and others have, but Geely's probably the most credible of these. And really, if you saw the playbook of prior ones coming in, it was, well, if you come in and make cars here, you're much more welcomed than if you're exporting into this country. And so you're likely to see that as well. And you saw a bit of that playing out with the Mexico footprint as well. It's really just a breather, though, of, okay, we're not going to push. It's not push in a way that push uneconomic vehicles on consumers, and instead you now have to have a globally competitive vehicle, and you better get there because it is going to inevitably go that way. It'll go that way once it's better, faster, cheaper. And in other parts of the world, it's already there, in China. In Europe, you're seeing it grow dramatically, dramatic growth last year in electric vehicles. In the autonomous side, I don't see it as much of a step back. There is the 2,500 vehicle limit on the exemption that you've got to get, where the assumption is that that will get expanded or worked into either a federal law, or you'll still have you've got these 5 states now that are very supportive of it. And so you don't see as much of a gap there. You see Waymo being talked about as probably the best in the world. And so that's a playbook that can be fought more at a level playing field. And then on the SDV side, you do have the electronics gaps and this sort of how do you change an old company that is used to working as mechanical or mechatronic into something that works with software in a real way, but in a way that works at the level of robustness that a customer and the regulators are going to need. So it is a benefit for the automakers to have the time and have the cash flows from the current business. Of course, nobody wants to be a boiling frog, so you have to now move to something that's actually globally competitive and not wait for partnerships or other JV structures or simply plants to be built here, which takes a couple years but doesn't take decades.
When do you think, and I'll preface this question by saying, if we had asked this question to experts 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 6 years ago, 2 years ago, we'd all get very different answers. But at this point, do you see EVs becoming the dominant powertrain in this country?
In this country, eventually, because it'll go to faster, better, cheaper, but it has to be fast charging. Charging has to be, easy. It has to be faster, better, cheaper, and when it is, you're going to see it for most. The plug-in hybrid and the extended range piece. There's towing that might get into more fuel cells than battery electrics and such, but you sort of see it going. It's a matter of when. But look, if that U7 was available today in this market, it would sell really well. If Geely's, the Geely's big, maybe with a different grille on it, but their big vehicle that they showed in CES and with level 3 capability was available for sale, or the L9 from Li Auto was available for sale, they would sell really well. And so it's not really a science project. And you saw at CES also a bunch of the announcements being, here's when I'm going to do L3, here's when I'm going to do L3 Plus, here's when I'm going to do L4. And you saw the Western companies saying, we have a vision for eventually doing this L3 Plus or
An
L4.
outline of a plan.
Yes, a plan to make a plan. But that's got to change, right? That has to be, you have to move at a global competitive scale, otherwise you become a very isolated market. And I think everybody gets that, but there is a pivot going on to how companies are organized and what they spend money on.
Thank you.
You brought up the Geely situation and their announcement at CES. I thought it rather interesting that they said that that's going to happen in 3 years.
Yeah, 2028. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty quick.
I'm just thinking about the political ramifications. That's the thing that got me.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the questions about Chinese technology, this is probably for you, Pepe, to start, is, there's concern about putting Chinese technology, embedding it for safety and privacy reasons,
Right.
Particularly related to AVs and such.
Mm-hmm.
What are you living this? What are you seeing?
Yes, I think I'm part of this sector, and the whole industry reacting differently. The core thing is, right now when we talk about sensitive technology, whatever key component or software structures, I think China OEM or China tiers, these groups are very strong at middle-level technology, but high complexity on hardware and software design, and high complexity on the supply chain management. These are what the Chinese OEM tiers are from, and they are really strong at. So I think the answer is if we talk about same technology or non-China sourcing or whatever alternatives, depends on do we have alternatives about same cost level, same performance, same speed. Right now for China company group, globally, I think the group is reacting to 3 different ways. One is just being myself or being himself. We focus on product, complicity, everything. Then customer can decide whether to buy or not to buy. And maybe another group will be embracing whatever partnership locally, which is great for localization growth and sharing the benefit, sharing the mutual trust with the local partners. And the third group would be maybe dedicatedly taking off China DNA by ownership, supply chain, manufacturing, design, everything. It's a long way to go, but I do see that group too. There's no right or wrong answer. I think it's all good for local growth for either Chinese group companies or local companies, because I think in general, China OEM tiers are really strong on product or whatever product-related capability. But think how to land the business is to gain customer partner comfortability and trust. Whatever they're doing right now is all trying to fill that 2 gaps. Then the business deal can be done. That's my idea. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the connected and the autonomous
That's right,
constraints, there's really a China and a non-China stack that's
Yes, it's a
everyone
lot of
sort
discussion going on.
everyone's kind of assuming that's going to stick around for quite some time, and so
Mm-hmm.
they're living in that world of I have to have a China stack and a non-China stack.
And we can definitely see more partnership or working together happening across different continental OEM and tiers. For sure, it's coming. Yeah.
Great. All right. The last question, I want to leave a few minutes for Q&A. Now, this question was written before Geely's announcement just last week. I'm going to ask this question of each of you. We'll do a retrospective in a couple years and see who was closest. When, A, do you think, and B, if so, when, will Chinese branded EVs be sold in the United States?
Branded, okay.
Chinese manufactured, as opposed to my Envision, which is coming from a partnership. But
And you don't
one of
count Volvo, I assume, as a
I do not count Volvo, right?
yeah,
One of
Volvo,
these
Polestar.
yeah, strictly out of China.
Strictly out of China. Well, Geely is saying 2028. You've got the Buicks and Hondas and Fords now. You've got Polestar and others. You've got investments of, I guess Mercedes is 10% Chinese and Geely at the time. So I think you'll see a lot more of those first before you see trying to create a new brand. BYD has done a big push in Europe to create their brand impression. And so they're doing pushes. You see it in Australia, you see it in the Caribbean area, you see it in South America. So I actually think it's probably more going to be them in 2029, 30 than Geely, who may actually use a existing brand or use another way in. It would seem like a better way to get a toehold in than try to do a big bang and spend the $500 million it would cost to launch a new brand and new set of vehicles in the United States.
Great. Paul?
So it's kind of interesting. I don't know if you've noticed, but I don't know how much money I would bet on this, but Faraday Future is saying that they are going to be producing SKD units in California this summer with parts from Great Wall Motors. And it's the Great Wall WEY MPV. They are going to be shipping that stuff here, and they say they're going to be actually selling consumer units by Q4 this year. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. But I mostly
take the under. You're taking the over.
but I do mostly agree with your point, Mark, and that is it's going to be towards the end of the decade. There's other fish for them to fry right now. There's better fish for them to fry. There's other markets that the Chinese car makers can go into with fewer barriers. Okay, and really towards the end of the decade, there'll be I would say some more refined extended range vehicles that will be very popular with U.S. consumers. I expect that we'll see solid-state battery technology in the marketplace by the end of the decade also, which will be another enabler for the expansion of extended range and pure BEV. I really believe the Chinese are going to be first to market with that. So I think Mark's forecast of the end of the decade is pretty right on.
And Pepe?
I think for non-branded and commercial vehicle sector, will be sooner expected, maybe already happening. For branded, sure, yeah. But for branded, each company have different strategy. In-house may become slower. Embracing partnership locally, getting done everything with their partners will be faster. So it's gonna be faster than everybody expected from the partnership. Yeah, someone will be.
It certainly feels like, however it happens, through whether there are tariffs or not, whether it's partnership, one way or the other, these vehicles will start to make it their way here. Anybody have any questions? If you could, there's a, come on right up to the microphone there, please.
Hey guys, thank you very much. George Ayers, Automobility Advisors. Question on capacity in China. There's a lot of pressure, I understand, from all those 140 to 200 automakers to export because they got to keep things flowing. And so, yeah, they have great vehicles when they get to Europe, but there's also reasons to push vehicles out to other markets. And so maybe this is a question for Mark. You know, how does that consolidation shake out in China? You know, yeah, you got 6 times more population than the U.S., so you can absorb lots of car companies, but it's probably not 200 ultimately. And you know, there's a global demand for vehicles at the end of the day that's going to be satisfied. So there's got to be some pressure there, just because the local market capacity is so high right now.
Yeah. They exported about 7 million vehicles this year and like none 10 years ago. So it's been growing very fast. It's interesting, though, it's the more healthy of the companies that are the exporters. The ones that are big enough and sizable enough to go through all of what they need to go through. So it's, if the market, I don't know the exact number, but it's about 10% more capacity utilization of the ones that are exporting than the ones that are not exporting. And so it's actually the healthier, stronger ones that are exporting. Yes, there is a push to export and to keep jobs going, keep jobs created, and this sort of thing. But it's not like an act of desperation of the weakest. It's actually an act of strength of the strongest, I would say. And of course, it will lead to localized manufacturing.
We're getting notes that we're over time. Did you have one quick question?
Hi, thank you. It sounds like Western Europe could set up to be like a key battleground between Chinese and non-Chinese OEMs this year. I'm curious if you guys have a view, like which countries, which market segments, which OEMs would be most vulnerable, and you know, what could we see this year? Thank you.
I answered the last one.
Yeah. So there clearly are some countries in Europe that are more BEV appropriate. Take a look at the take rates in Norway. The take rates in Germany are coming up, okay? It's going to be interesting. There's been some pushback by the European industry and even some of the governments. They are going to force some local content. So I think it's going to go down a kind of a normal path. You've got BYD investing in a facility in Hungary, I think, okay? And they're going to be in a good, really great position to produce cars in the local market and distribute them. So I see them as a winner.
Yeah, SAIC, Geely as well. Or SAIC has obviously got a huge presence already. But I think, yeah, the EV market, the Chinese EV market grew much faster percentage-wise in Europe than in China last year, and you're probably going to see more of that continue.
I think a long time ago, Xpeng and Lincoln Co. already started selling or leasing Europe market. And future, like I said, whoever embracing partnership faster will be going faster in Europe market for sure. Yeah. You can Google everyone.
Hopefully
Whoever
with LiDARs.
send the PR will be, yeah, hopefully.
Let's have a hand for our great panel. Thank you all.
Thank you.